Um, this is our second press briefing, and I need to start off by telling you that the learning curve in this new job is very steep. In fact, it's perpendicular to the horizon. Um, Gone through some things with the organization, and I'd like to just say that first of all, there are a lot of hardworking civil servants that I've met, and I'm very pleased to see the effort that is being put in by many of the civil servants in a very trying time. We have what I consider two jobs at the same time. One is operating Country St. Martin, and at the same time try to restructure Country St. Martin. And those two jobs are really full-time jobs and need to be done really by two sets of people. But it's being done right now by basically one set of people, and it makes it very, very difficult. Some of the responsibilities and some of the jobs are crossing paths, and so I see some difficulties in the organization as we have it right now, and we need to make sure that that gets help as much as possible. Work on the recovery and the reconstruction is ongoing in many different sectors and many different areas. And we're trying to make St. Martin, of course, a stronger and better St. Martin. One of the issues that I've seen also in my go-around in the ministry is the reliability of our ICT systems is on a big under a lot of strain. In our ministry, the Ministry of Finance, we have problems in the tax administration and problems in the finance department because of ICT problems, and we are looking into how we can solve some of these things. If you can't make assessments, you can't collect taxes. Without taxes, you have a bigger liquidity problem. So for us, it's very, very important that we solve some of these issues, and as I said, we're busy trying to figure out where the problems are and why we have the problems. Budget 2018. I want to give you an update where we are with that. Budget was approved by the Council of Ministers previous with a deficit of almost 255 million guilders, and that was created because of an increase in expenses and a drop in income. A request, of course, we as a country need to have a balanced budget, and if we can't, then we have to, in accordance with the financial supervision laws, the kingdom laws for financial supervision rather, we have to request approval from the Kingdom Council of Ministers to deviate from having a balanced budget, and a request has been, a letter has been sent out by our ministry, and it's gone to the Kingdom Council of Ministers. And of course, we also are in contact with the CFT, the members of the CFT who are there to try to help us navigate and be sure that we do the things in the right fashion. And we're hoping that the kingdom instruction will not be taken into consideration where we're at. Our hope is that right now, as we stand, the budget is in the trajectory of going to the Council of Advice, and we hope that we can complete it and bring it to Parliament after we have the necessary information, so that we can have it ready by March 1st. We're still looking at March 1st as a target date to have our budget 2018 completed. Liquidity, we are in a tight situation. At the moment, we have not received any liquidity support yet. It has been requested. And we're trying to do everything we can to solve that issue. It has to do with dealing with the World Bank also, because the liquidity support is going to come out of the 550 million euros that has been allocated to us as a country. So the folks from the World Bank are on island, and we are talking to everyone. We are trying to improve our liquidity also by controlling cost and finding ways to reduce waste. One of the things is the lights in this government building. We try to come to a way where we can turn them off at night and not have everything on. That's just one of the things. We feel that everybody, every civil servant, every ministry must do its utmost to try to cut down on expenses so that we have a chance to improve the liquidity of the island. And then we have, we've had meetings in the past week with the APS, with the SZV, and with the SOAB. We've visited the airport and been going around taking a look at all the different parts of our ministry. We're working right now also on the efforts. I want to talk about the Moody's credit rating. That is very important. As you know, every island, every country wants to have the best possible credit rating so that they can borrow money at a decent interest rate. And the higher our credit rating is, the lower the interest rates would be. If we have a good Moody's rating, it can cause for, as I said, interest be lower on monies that the country can borrow, but not only the country, also the private sector in the country, and of course also the companies that are owned by government, such as the airport and the harbor. So for us, having a good credit rating is a good deal. One of the things that affect that, of course, is how much money we have available ourselves. And again, it comes back to the conversation about the 550 million euros that have been made available to St. Martin by the Dutch. We don't know which part of the 550 million is a loan and which part would be a grant, or under what conditions we are going to get the 550 million. The more that we get as a grant, the better it will be also for our Moody's rating, because if we have a better cash flow, if we have more cash available ourselves, the better we will get a higher credit rating. So here again, it's another good reason for as much as possible of the 550 million to be given to St. Martin as a grant rather than as a loan. Again, our conversations are ongoing, and we hope to be able to achieve the best possible scenario for St. Martin in its quest to recover from Hurricane Irma and the after effects of that. As I said, we are going through the various departments and trying to identify as much as possible how we can improve them. And as I said before, one of the big issues is for us is ICT. We have a problem in the Ministry of Finance to get timely reports. There's an inability to efficiently figure out what your assessments are and to collect taxes. So we have identified several problems, and we are going to continue doing what we can to improve the system and make changes where changes are due. I think I'll leave it at that for now, and if you have questions, I'll be awaiting those. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister Ferrier, for those opening remarks. At this time, I invite Minister of Education, Culture and Youth Sports, the Honorable Urien Wuite, to the podium.
Thank you. And good morning to the members of the press. Good morning to my colleagues. It has been an inspiring and great week, in which we indeed, of course, have to make sure that we make progress, because we made a promise to the public at large that it would be all be about recovery. Recovery of our various in the areas of our various responsibilities. And for me, as Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, the recovery relevant to education, culture, youth and sport. And as I emphasized in, I believe, the first press briefing, but also the press releases, this ministry prepared a ministry's resilience plan. And I think we can take great pride in the efforts and the acceleration of the management team of the ministry, and the accomplishment and the partnership with the stakeholders that we serve. We shouldn't downplay and underestimate the importance of this ministry. I will champion this ministry, and it is very unfortunate that we have to conclude in this ministry's resilience plan that the expected damages of this ministry are expected to be in the area of $40 million. That could be related to our educational facilities, our schools, our cultural institutions, our sports facilities, and we so direly need them to secure and support our families and our community. We also know in this first week, and we expect, due to the meetings that we've had and the consultations that we've had with insurance companies and the core group established on behalf of government, that we anticipate that not all cost of the damages can be borne through the insurance claims, and that therefore emphasizes the importance of active resource mobilization for this ministry. As I mentioned, expected to be approximately $40 million, and we will ensure that that will be our priority in the weeks ahead of us. We encourage the community at large to participate in a variety of initiatives, such as Sint Maarten Doet, as emphasized. We encourage private sectors or government-owned companies to support wherever we can, so that we can complement the funds that we, of course, expect to come from the insurance claims, but that we also can secure that the budget, as my colleague, Minister of Finance, so emphasized, has recently been approved, can indeed be supported for the capital investment necessary to ensure that we will not have a long process of recovery for this ministry, but that we try to indeed have a plan with priorities set in the let's say, first 2 to 3 years to at least get on the same level, and our ambition is to even build back better, as emphasized. As an example, for instance, the matter of Philipsburg Library, matters related to Sundial School, the matters related to CBA. How should that be resolved? How can we also then ensure that when we build back, that we also then alleviate some of the, for instance, traffic congestion related to some of the concentration of the schools? That's our philosophy, and that's how we would like to go about with this matter. And as I emphasize, we shouldn't downplay the importance of the schools, of recreation and of culture at a time like this, because I would like to emphasize to you, members of the media and all listeners, that these are vital components to our physical and psychological psyche. And they play a huge role indeed in the so-called resilience that we've emphasized on numerous occasions. Matters related to the recovery, for instance, as we have seen the importance of USM and its repair. I'm happy to announce that my cabinet established a sequence of various meetings in the next 2 weeks, various schools, CBA, USM, NIPA, all other type of affected schools will receive priority, and the meetings have been established. That's the immediate follow-up out of the stakeholders meeting that we had last week. To support the priority of funding for USM, the importance of higher education as an economic diversification strategy, I'm happy to announce that one of the first priorities and results were that I was able to have the advice signed off to have a legal counsel, a legal consultant present for the next 3 months to assist us in the completion of the draft legislation as the vital policy necessary to underlie the funding, structural funding and sustainable funding for USM. Mrs. Fleur Lacher has been hired. She started this week, and her task will indeed primarily focus on the establishment and the preparations of the higher education ordinance to bring it to the Council of Ministers' final decision, and in order to bring it to Parliament for deliberations and consultation. Mrs. Fleur Lacher, in addition, will also work on another set of legislation, such as the Inspectorate of Education. You can imagine that during these times that we need to keep a close eye on the performance of our students. They are challenged every day. They are still under situations such as classrooms without electricity, classrooms without light, classrooms sometimes indeed with leakage. So those are circumstances that we have to bear in mind, and we have to secure that we monitor the performance closely so that we can respond and intervene where necessary and prioritize groups and schools that deserve that. So she will work on both legislation as the first priority, and I would like to emphasize that even though Fleur Lacher is somebody from the Netherlands with a legal background and previously working at the Ministry of OCW as a policy advisor, she has basic skills. But I would want to emphasize, however, that I'm a sincere and deep believer of local expertise and opportunities for our youth. So that's why the agreements are for a short period of time. That's why I'm also happy to announce that we were unfortunately confronted with a senior policy advisor that left us. We engaged in the recruitment drive, which is currently ongoing. Now, that therefore is an effort and an opportunity for both to at least have a time in which they can work together and a local expert can take over whenever we are ready to recruit such a person. That's what I want to emphasize, especially under these circumstances of unemployment and dear opportunities that our locals need, or even those that are currently studying abroad, concluding their studies and ready to come back to assist in our recovery process. So that's the update about USM and higher education. You've seen some matters in the news, of course, about the pavilion schools and the challenges that we endure. The proper usage of the pavilion schools continue to be a challenge, as has been addressed in various media. And as you may recall, the ministry, as part of the emergency relief efforts from the Netherlands, received 3 pavilion schools donated by the Ministry of Education, Science and Culture in the Netherlands. They were donated. They were not bought by St. Maarten government, but it's considered to be a grant, for which we are very grateful. But however, we indeed endure the problems related to sometimes the cooling of the schools. We are happy, and I made a visit yesterday to CBA to see how the cooling have been remedied at that school. I was happy to at least see that that problem was solved. Was informed, however, that they indeed endure other type of challenges related to the closeness and the close proximity to the dump, which I hope we can partner with other colleagues within the ministry to have that situation remedied. I will also continue to visit other schools that receive those pavilions, such as the Methodist Agogic Center and also Academy, to see what type of challenges they are faced with and whether they are indeed also able to remedy the situation of the cooling system, such as MAC expressed through the media. I do have a meeting with them scheduled to ensure that we stay on top of things. And of course, these are unforeseen matters related to the extraordinary circumstances that we were faced with, and we were happy to receive those gifts because we had anticipated 18 classrooms that were missing and with serious problems. And we had, of course, the ambition, as you know, also from the previous minister, to reopen. So that has assisted, but we have to ensure that we iron out those problems. A third element related to our recovery that I'm happy to announce is that the Red Cross breakfast program that started for 3 months have been receiving a positive and a support from the Ministry of Home Relations and Kingdom Affairs, BZK, and they will extend the program with another 3 months. Funded by them, the government will support for matters related to fueling, and while we recognize that therefore the support extends until the end of May, we will make sure that this government and this ministry will secure the funding for the remaining month to ensure that the Red Cross breakfast program can at least endure, be secured for the entire school year until the early July. So we're happy to indeed receive that partnership through UNICEF, through the Red Cross, and through BZK for the necessity for various family members to have indeed breakfast and lunch programs during the extended school hours. Last but not least, not directly related to recovery maybe, but still. You may have seen the news and the press release informing the press and the entire community that on Friday, January 26th, the Division of Study Financing, in collaboration with the Division of Education Innovation, the Department of Youth, and the Department of Labor and Social Services of my colleague minister, will host a registration drive from 9 to 1 p.m. in the lobby of the Government Administration Building. Persons, young people interested in being employed in the building construction sector have the wonderful opportunity to attend a 6-month training at the Institute of Technology in Trinidad to indeed become certified tradesmen. Yeah, we've emphasized the critical shortage of staff in that area of construction, and therefore our need and reliance on foreign labor, and therefore we need to emphasize the importance of these type of opportunities. I would like to encourage young men and women, I will not be gender biased, to grab this opportunity. Through the Studying in the Region project, that is the title on which these initiatives can take place. It is funded by the Netherlands. Persons can become certified in carpentry, masonry, plumbing, electrical installation, welding, and general property management. These courses are indeed recognized because they are certified on a Caribbean vocational qualification level. To be eligible to apply, you have to be between the ages of 18 and 35. Yeah, so it's also an important opportunity for second chance learning, and which I would like to emphasize, seeing the high numbers of unemployment amongst that category. When we are still looking at the situation of approximately 24-25% youth unemployment, please, I would like to encourage everybody to grab that opportunity. I look forward to seeing you together with my colleague there Friday morning, and with all the divisions present. You have to have a Dutch nationality, or, and here it comes, possess a permanent residence permit. Yeah? So other than, for instance, study financing that is limited to Dutch nationalities, Dutch nationals, this is a wider group, and that creates an opportunity. You, potential qualified students, should have a strong interest in the construction sector. And I know it might be challenging because you might want to hustle and grab the opportunity and a job that you have out there now. But this is a course for 6 months, and look at the opportunity ahead of you. Don't only go for the quick fixes, try and really enhance your competencies and skills so that you can be there to stay, and that you also create opportunities for yourself to, for instance, start your own business. Yeah, we all emphasize, Minister of Economic Affairs, Minister of Labor, emphasize the importance of micro-entrepreneurship, and that is a great opportunity. So I really want to encourage everybody to grab the opportunity. You have to be willing to live abroad for 6 months in Trinidad. Yeah, you have to therefore be self-reliant, strong, of strong will, and therefore to study temporarily abroad. It is expected that you have basic literacy and math skills, and of course, preferably some vocational education on a secondary level. That's my last contribution. Of course, I would like to encourage the press that if there are any type of further additional questions, we will be happy to answer them either during this press conference or on a personal note. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister Waiter, for those opening remarks. At this time, I invite to the podium Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment, and Infrastructure, the Honorable Miklos Gietersen.
Thank you, Marcia. Good morning, Madam Prime Minister. Good morning, fellow ministers. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'm going to start my briefing by briefing you on the roof repair program. The Ministry of ROMI, in collaboration with the Ministry of VSA, will oversee the realization of this project and is to begin within short. More than 900 homeowners applied for assistance via the roof repair program, which was presented to the Ministry of ROMI for further assistance and handling, which is now ongoing, and this is known as the recovery phase. Based on the aforementioned registrations received by the Ministry of VSA, the Ministry of ROMI started assessments last December and managed to minimize the balance of the pending applicants to approximately 480. This includes roughly 250 senior citizens. A public tender was held last December on the 15th for the purchasing of materials, which are needed for the execution of the program. The tender consisted of two parts, namely for building materials, which would include lumber, zinc, and steel, for example, and for construction materials, which would be sand, gravel, cement, blocks, etc. On Friday, January 12, 2018, an information meeting was held with a group of contractors at the Ministry of ROMI. In this meeting, the purpose of the program was discussed and also what is to be expected of the contractors during the execution phase. They were asked to fill in a questionnaire to establish their interest, and interested contractors who have not registered as yet can still do so by registering at the Ministry of ROMI at the government building on Pawn Island, Sualiga Boulevard, number 1. Government has reserved funds for phase 1 of this project, which aims to repair about 150 roofs, but of the priority group who have been severely affected, particularly senior citizens and residents with intellectual disabilities. This past weekend, a group of ROMI specialists accompanied me to see some of the damaged roofs, and the situation is really serious, so the ministry wishes to start soon with phase 1 of the project. Next, I'm going to brief you on the potholes situation, which I know a lot of residents are complaining about. We plan to deal with the potholes in general by sticking to a structural plan to check and repair the potholes on a periodic basis. Right now, the ministry gave Wynwood Roads a green light to start pothole reparations, and we are also aware of the conditions in places like Nazareth and Union Farm, secondary roads, I should say, which should also be dealt with as soon as possible. The traffic lights are also on my list to get fixed. We have already contacted the technicians, and they are currently busy ordering the necessary parts for the damaged traffic lights. I am scheduled to meet with St. Martin Housing Development Foundation to discuss the possibility of developing new housing projects, and also to see what government can do concerning the immediate repairs for the damages sustained in Belvedere, Hope Estate, and the existing emergency houses from the past hurricanes. Discussions are also ongoing to develop a permanent facility to serve with a dual function of emergency housing and a sports dorm at the Little League ballpark. The initial plans consist of approximately 50 units, and the project can be realized within a period of 3 months. So this could be just in time for the next hurricane season. Last but not least, I would also want to invite the public to walk-ins at the ministry, because as a ministry of the people, we chose to open the week with meeting and hearing the needs of the general public. So first thing, Monday morning, the public is welcome to come to my cabinet with questions for the ministry. But seeing the shortage of my time of the current schedule that I have, the visiting hours would be limited from 9 a.m. to about noon. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Peterson, for those opening remarks. At this time, I'd like to invite to the podium the Honorable Minister of Justice, Interim Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport, and Telecommunications, Minister Cornelius de Wever.
Good morning. Thank you, Ms. Bobatui, Ms. Gums, and Honorable Prime Minister, colleague ministers, welcome. Good morning, St. Martin. Well, it's been a busy week and a half, and I'm sorry I missed last week's conference, but I was in Curacao for the first meeting of ministers of justice from Aruba, Curacao, the Netherlands, and St. Martin. And I wanted to express again my gratitude for the assistance during the time of post-AMA and up to today. I've been able to swear in, actually on Monday, last week, Monday, I swore in 6 officers that are assisting the KPSM, and I also swore in 3 officers on Sunday to assist us as well. So the cooperation continues to grow. On Monday and Tuesday, we had the successful justice meetings with all stakeholders within the law enforcement as well as the Netherlands. And out of that, we have reached a plan of action regarding 3 very important points, which was the border control, the police, and the prison. We are going to be finalizing the provisions for the addition of 10 experienced police officers, which was also done in consultation with the unions. Now, I had sent an email to the unions last week requesting a meeting with them. So when I saw the article in the newspaper, I just smiled because I think there may have been some sort of miscommunication amongst the unions. But apparently there are 2 unions that I have to deal with with the police force, and I have requested a meeting with both of them on Friday, because if we're going to be talking about the same subjects and the same agenda points, then we might as well kill 2 birds with 1 stone. In the meantime, I've been able to make some unannounced visits and drop in and say hi and thank you to all of the law enforcement officers that are doing their work diligently every day, visiting the ones on the airport, as well as not only immigration but also customs, the police station, the tour of the prison, and also on Illich Road as well. So I want to thank them again for the work that they do in keeping us safe. And of course, there's always room for improvement, but we will do so together. As far as the Ministry of Tourism, or TIAD, is concerned, I've also, you may have noticed on Monday last week, visited the airport and had a little tour of what was going on. And since then, we know we have had a meeting with them yesterday as well, with not only the managing board, but also supervisory board, the interim chairman of the holding, and also their representatives, whether it's from the adjusting part of it and the insurance claims part of it, as well as the design and also the financing part of it, which is the bond. So that stakeholders meeting went really well yesterday. Lots of questions were answered and cleared up. And I think we're going to be moving far ahead with the airport because they also started their cleanup and their demolition is scheduled to start on Monday, the 29th. I hope to be there to make sure that the first crowbar that goes in is mine because the airport is so important for our economy and we cannot, of course, play any games with it. We have to make sure that it gets up and running and in the right condition. We want to build back bigger, better, and stronger as well. We also toured the Asiwati cruise facilities, the harbor, and we saw some of the damage there as well. One of the piers were also damaged, and we are looking at how fast this will be repaired. That's going well as well, and we know that within short that it's going to be up and running. We also have some meetings planned with the French side because I believe that we need to have a unified approach to bring in businesses as well as tourists back to St. Martin. Last night, the Prime Minister will probably touch base on it, but from an economical point of view, I want to thank the firefighters for the work that they did from yesterday morning until the wee hours of last night, simply because it was in an economic center, in the warehouses, and they were able to contain it and not allow it to spread to the other buildings. And, after Irma, we don't need any more losses of businesses and jobs, so I am grateful for the work that they've done. We also had a St. Martin Tourism Bureau and St. Martin Hospitality and Trade Association Strategic Marketing Summit that was held last week Wednesday as well. Great things coming out of it. We talked about the timeline for the restart of the full marketing campaigns. Both public and private sectors agreed that we should focus on our PR efforts immediately, followed by a marketing campaign that would run simultaneously with the recovery of hotel inventory. As far as the hotel and tourism product inventory, stakeholders have agreed to a more unified, systematic approach to a roadmap to hotel room and product inventory. As far as the Airbnb, because we know that that's also a market that we have to watch, discussions will continue or will be taken with them as well. And when it comes to funds or funds for AIDS, some of these funds will go towards retraining displaced workforce, as well to supplement the tourism budget for a major marketing campaign whose plan can be developed jointly by stakeholders and government. On Monday, there will be a Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association Caribbean Travel Marketplace in Puerto Rico, and we intend to be part of that because we have some very important meetings with stakeholders, owners of hotels as well, and we will be participating in that. Those are a few of the updates that I have, and I will be open for any questions that you have. Thank you and have a pleasant day.
Thank you, Minister De Wever, for your opening remarks. At this time, I'd like to invite to the podium the Honorable Minister of Public Health, Social Development, and Labor, Emily. Minister.
Good morning, media, those listening by radio, television, or internet. A warm welcome to Prime Minister and colleague ministers. I have to say, look, it's only been about a week and a half since we've been working together, but I must say that the atmosphere is good, the energy is positive. It really feels like a good team working together, and it's an honor to work together with you. First, just this week, we received a used ambulance that was donated to us from United States. This was donated to the ambulance department. I'd like to issue a special thanks to Rabbi Moshe Chanowitz from the St. Martin Shabbat for coordinating the donation. Besides the donation, we've had excellent conversations. I've had quite an education, actually, in
the Jewish community's involvement in the development of the Caribbean. It's actually been very educational and fascinating. The ambulance was actually donated by the Senior Care EMS in New York by a Michael Vach. Transportation for the ambulance was arranged by the United Jewish Appeal, the Jewish community of New York, through Rabbi Klein and pharmacist Lev Rivkin. You know, we'd like to thank the rabbi and his team for their engagement and for their generosity. You know, after the storm, he came to my office and we spoke, and he said, really, just tell me, what can I do? How can I help? I have a network throughout the community and also extends into the United States. And he said, look, I just want to help. Just give me a list of what I can do. And he's been relentless ever since. Minister, he's also put together some educational materials that are coming for the department, for the Ministry of Education. So we thank you for your engagement, for your love for the community, and for your contributions. The plans are to use the ambulance, because it is a used ambulance, so we want to make sure that we're fitting it into our network properly. So the plans are to use the ambulance to support events. So in particular, there always is an ambulance presence at the Heineken Regatta, Carnival, things like that. So the ambulance will be used for those events, and that will also free up our primary emergency ambulances for their regular services. You know, just after last week's press conference, also received a phone call saying, you know, look, we understand what the island is going through, and St. Martin continues to receive offers of assistance, and keep it coming. The country appreciates it. Minister of Education, you touched on the fact that there's a educational opportunity, training construction workers in Trinidad. I'd like to remind people as well that White and Yellow Cross has a training program for 50 persons, also for basic construction as well as healthcare assistance. You know, this all is in line with government's priority to make sure that our people acquire the skills that they need to in order to participate in our economy. Clearly, our economy is a different economy. Our normal tourism economy has been badly damaged, our infrastructure, our airport, and that means there's a certain limit in terms of what our tourism economy can provide for this next year, perhaps 2 years. In the meantime, we need to make sure that our people acquire the skills that they can participate in our reconstruction economy, and we encourage you to do that. You know, the discussion is going to come about new developments or projects that need to be rebuilt, and the country is going to be faced with fundamental questions about, do you grant permits for other construction workers to come in to help to rebuild the properties, or do we have the people locally to participate? And so it's up to us to make sure that if we want our people to participate, that you acquire the skills necessary to do that. You have our commitment that we recognize, and it is our goal to make sure that our population participates as much as possible in the recovery process, but you need to make sure that you have the skills there to do that. Regarding the SMMC, as you know, since Hurricane Irma, we've been relentless in trying to secure financing for the new hospital. The World Bank has representatives that are here already. They are working on what's called a RAS agreement, a Reimbursable Advisory Services contract. This is the first phase of World Bank's assistance to the island. And one of the things that we've agreed is that we're looking for an injection, a grant of about $25 million for the hospital in order to make the hospital Category 5 proof. We believe that that money needs to come in as a grant, not as a soft loan, and we're making a case to the Netherlands, but also we've begun, based on our conversations this week with representatives from the World Bank, for them to begin that evaluation process for the hospital project as well. An early commitment, and we've made this point clear to them, we don't need the money right now. We need the commitment. We need the reassurance that Holland will participate because it affects our design process, and as you know, making changes in designs costs money. Without the commitment, what it means is we will work on the design for the new hospital, the financing for the main building, but we will leave the extra wing off for now, which means later, when the money for that wing comes in, we will have to change the design again and trying to figure out how to connect the two buildings, which of course we'll take into consideration now, but there will be costs associated with it. So the sooner we can make the decision about whether that investment is possible or not, the better it is for the country and the better it is for the efficiency and scheduling of the project. The project clearly is critical for the country going forward. It's a critical infrastructure. It's a clear priority for both the government and for the community. I mean, this was expressed prior to Irma, and Irma's only reinforced that need. And the project is decision-ready. I mean, there's a lot of projects that government is looking to have financed, but this is a project that, because of the coincidental timing, has already much of the documentation needed in place. We have already been through the review by CFT from SOAB. So I believe that this is a decision-ready project, and we hope that Holland and the World Bank will prioritize the commitment. Again, not necessarily the funds, simply the commitment to the project. I do believe that it's a good point to show that, this is where if you take the time to execute projects correctly, make sure your documentation's in place, that you do with integrity, with transparency, and a proper bidding procedure, that it has benefits. For example, if you look at the agreement from the World Bank, one of their critical points as they evaluate projects is to make sure that it follows World Bank procurement guidelines. What they mean is, if you execute a service, if you want something to be paid for, they want to make sure that the process was a process done with transparency and with integrity. The last thing the World Bank wants is to be associated with some sort of a project that has something that's not gone ethically correct. So the project is done according to FIDIC Gold contract guidelines, and I believe that again means, even according to World Bank standards, that the project will very much fit in their funding guidelines. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Lee, for your opening remarks. At this time, I call to the podium Honorable Prime Minister Leona Romeo Marlin. Prime Minister.
A pleasant good morning once again to those listening through the various means of media, invited press. Good morning. Today's update, or press briefing, I would like to indicate first by giving my thanks and appreciation to our firemen for the outstanding job that they did last night. I know the Minister of Justice indicated about, the last thing we really needed, indeed, and it's true, is the loss of extra businesses. But I want to add to that the loss of lives as well. And the lives of our firemen and anyone in that area was safe, so that was one of our first concerns. I thank the Minister for going to the scene with me, and what we witnessed was an outstanding team showing their professionality, the professionalism, and their competency. So I just want to thank our firemen and women, because there was a lady out there doing the job to the best of their ability and controlling that fire. At the same time, I want to discourage persons from spreading false information and reports, as this practice can cause unnecessary delays and hamper the efficient response of our emergency services. Protocol was followed, and the fire chief, Mr. Clive Richardson, was in constant contact with me, and everything was under control. I would also like to encourage businesses and homeowners to be vigilant about the materials in their buildings and homes to ensure that they are not at risk of causing any kind of fire and adhere to the fire safety regulations. Secondly, a decision was made in the COM last week about the services at the Civil Registry Department and the Public Service Center starting Monday, January 29th. And the decision is as follows. All efforts are being made to reopen the Civil Registry section at the PSC Simpson Bay as soon as possible. The opening hours for the Civil Registry on Wednesdays will be extended to 3:30 p.m., The office will no longer close during half days. The extended opening hours are until the current appointment backlog for ID cards, driver's licenses, and passports has been cleared up. In addition, on Saturdays, the office will open from 9 o'clock in the morning to 1 p.m. to further assist in clearing up this appointment backlog. Once a week, on a chosen date to be announced by the departments, walk-ins for registration forms will be possible, so no appointments will be needed on this day. Senior citizens will continue to have preference when it comes to receiving services at the Civil Registry Department. And lastly, the opening hours for civil servants, their spouses, and children will be reinstated. These services will be provided between 8 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. by appointment only. I will repeat, opening hours for our civil servants, their spouses, and children will be reinstated. These services will be provided daily from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8:30 a.m. by appointment only. Over the next 2 weeks, a World Bank team will work with the civil servants to identify priorities for the recovery and reconstruction of St. Martin. I welcomed the team last Friday, and they held their first meetings on Monday. The World Bank team comprises of recovery program specialists and operations advisors. As a first step, the team will assist the government in finalizing the damage and loss analysis of Hurricanes Irma and Maria. At the same time, the World Bank team will look closely together with the government of St. Martin on a consolidated national recovery and reconstruction plan. This plan will define short, medium, and long-term priorities for recovery and reconstruction. The plan will further include estimates of financial requirements and identify projects that require urgent action. The implementation of the National Recovery and Reconstruction will be led by the government of St. Martin. The World Bank will provide technical assistance and serve as the trustee of the financial support that has been offered by the government of the Netherlands. On Tuesday afternoon, following an introductory meeting to assess the current state of the Postal Services St. Martin, a delegation including the Minister of Justice, Cornelius de Wever, and my person, visited the offices of the PSS to observe the working conditions and to better understand the severity of the financial situation of the PSS. Management of PSS and the SMCU union are on the same page, and that is a positive sign. We are fully aware that the Postal Services as a business is no longer viable locally and internationally. And to add insult to injury, the building was severely damaged by Hurricane Irma. Thus, an innovative and effective financial solution must be put together quickly. In short term, the government of St. Martin continues to support PSS in its efforts to keep its postal and other services to the public functioning. I take this opportunity to publicly thank the brave and committed staff of PSS for working under such deplorable conditions and pledge government's commitment to come to an amicable solution that takes into consideration all parties involved. The present situation is truly unacceptable, and something must be done sooner rather than later. And lastly, on Monday, January 22nd, a letter was sent to the Kingdom Council of Ministers regarding the constitutional infringements that has been taking place since 2016. To give a short recap, the previous Council of Ministers made a decision that was unconstitutional. Good governance has not been followed in the process. The actions of government has eroded the value of the Constitution, and the continuous trampling of our Constitution must stop. Please bear in mind that the Constitution is established to also protect the people of St. Martin. I have taken oath to protect and uphold the Constitution. The postponement of elections in January 2016 was also unconstitutional. The current decree that has led to unconstitutional infringement. With this said, the Council of Ministers collectively decided to utilize the existing laws and procedures as outlined in the Constitution and uphold the principles of good governance. This Council of Ministers has requested the Kingdom Council to take measures within the confinements of the law. The Kingdom Council, which is comprised by our sister islands and the Netherlands, will have the authority to decide on the constitutional infringement and which measures to take. It cannot be excluded that the decree to dissolve Parliament gets annulled. Please note, and I repeat, please note that the current process to prepare for election continues. We hope that we can rebuild the trust of the people in our Constitution. As your Prime Minister, I will continue to fight on your behalf, and on your behalf. And we will avoid any type of disruptions and focus on rebuilding St. Martin. I want to thank the Council of Ministers for staying dedicated and focused to the process of recovery. And I thank each of you for giving your updates to the general public.
Thank you, Prime Minister Leona Romeo Marlin, for those opening remarks. If you have just joined us, you're watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing. Thank you for joining us. We now go over to the question and answer session. Member of the press is reminded to limit your question and answers, limit your question to short, direct queries. The floor is now open for the member of the media to ask questions. Stephen?
Ministers, good morning. My question is directed at Minister of Vermi, Minister Gutterson. You said that the roofing program is to start shortly.
Correct.
The fundings have also been secured for this program. How much are we talking about, and how soon will the program start?
I've been informed by new projects that about approximately 5 million guilders were reserved for the project, and we are trying to start as soon as possible. Giving you a definite date, I cannot do this right now. I can get back to you, but as soon as possible.
Minister Emily, last week you said that you had discussions with the stakeholders in Curacao as it pertains to the hospital. You're seeking for funding from them. Approximately how much are you hoping to get from the stakeholders in Curacao?
The total for the first phase, the main building for the hospital, we're looking at $70 million in total. So as it's shaping up, there will be a consortium of financiers, of which Curacao will probably take about half of that 70 million in total.
Thank you.
Stephen, just a kind reminder, it's one question per minister. Okay? Lyndon, you have the floor.
Okay, morning. Good morning to all the ministers and to the media, to the listening public. Minister of Education, I must say, congratulations. And the process of re-solidify our people. Can you be a little more specific? Where in Trinidad these youngsters, people will be going to?
I cannot give you the exact address. Thank you for the compliments. And I cannot, of course, we support this initiative wholeheartedly, and the details are available at the Division of Study Financing. It is, as I mentioned, it's a program, a certified program at the Technology Institute in Trinidad. Don't know exactly which city, but we are able to assist you with that and inform you further if you would have an interest in the exact details associated with the Technology Institute and its location, which city, etc. All right?
Thank you, Lyndon, for that question. Stephen, do you have a question?
Minister of Finance, Meg Ferrier, you spoke of the need to identify projects much needed for St. Martin last week. You said that was a priority for your person as well. Have you been able to identify those much needed projects for St. Martin following the passing of Hurricane Irma?
Well, you know, as Minister of Finance, we kind of run as a red thread through all ministries, and we really leave it up to the ministries individually to identify what they think is important and what priorities they think they want to bring to the table. And then we meet as a team and we decide together. So I prefer to defer the question to the individual ministries so that they can tell you about their priorities. Now, from the Ministry of Finance itself, it's important that we get a handle on taxes that are out there and are not collected. A country cannot run without taxes. We want services from government, and those services need to be paid for. I always say tax avoidance in according to the laws that are there is possible and mostly a must. Tax evasion is a crime. And so we need to make sure from our point of view that we collect as much as we can on taxes that people actually owe. In that same vein, in the restructuring of St. Martin, in the reconstruction of St. Martin, many new companies have started up, construction companies at that. You hear all kinds of things. You know, somebody was a hairdresser last week, and this week he's a contractor. We would hope that the reconstruction is done in the correct fashion. We would hope that those that have started companies properly employ people in the correct fashion, report the people that they have employed, pay the taxes for those people, pay the SZV for those people, because God forbid on one of those construction jobs, somebody gets an accident and ends up in the hospital. From a humanitarian point of view, Mr. Lee's people will have to provide service. That needs to be paid for. So we ask everyone that while we emphasize the need to rebuild St. Martin better and stronger, let's do it in a fashion where, first of all, the employees are properly protected, and you as a contractor, you as the entrepreneur, make a lot of money rebuilding St. Martin, and then give our government a piece of the action, what is due to us. So that would be one of the biggest priorities for us.
Thank you, Stephen, for that question. Lyndon, you have the final question.
Minister Marlin, Prime Minister Marlin, you said that the Constitution have been violated. When did it come to your attention that this violation occurred?
Thank you for that question. A letter was sent by Member of Parliament Sarah Westcott Williams to the government before I took office. A response was never given by the government. Remember our responsibilities as government. When Parliament asks questions, government gives a reply. When I received those questions, because of course in a transition you get the documents, I sent the information to the Secretary General and it went through the legal team. A response was given. The letter was drafted. It was sent to the Parliament where all members of Parliament received a copy of the response of the government. So at that particular time when I came to office and I saw the letter prior to my time, it's not because the letter was there, I don't have to answer it. It's our obligation as government to respond to Parliament, and we did such.
Right.
Lyndon, is this in relation to the same question?
Same question. This is reality. Is it punishable? And what this Council of Ministers plan to do, because maybe it might be ongoing.
Can you rephrase your question as it relates to what is punishable?
Is this violation punishable? It's a violation, right? Of the right.
As far as I know, I can't answer that question. I just know our responsibility as government is to respond to
Thank you,
Parliament.
Lyndon, for that question. No further question at this time.